A lot of people say, can we have a two-party system? That's the ideal, that's how many developed countries work, that's what you should aim for. Change of government from the first party to the second, and then from the second to come back, and then you are considered to have matriculated. But how could this happen in Singapore, that we have two parties? I can imagine several scenarios. First, the society splits based on race or religion. You have one party representing one race or religion, another party representing another race or religion. That's the worst possible scenario for Singapore, and we've done our best to make sure that it never comes about. Because if you're split on race or religion, you're not just going to have political quarrels, you're going to divide the society, and that's the end for Singapore. The second possibility is that you divide on class lines. We don't get our economic policies right, or maybe just the world trends are such. The rich get richer, the poor don't make progress. After a while, the poor lose hope in the system. The rich lose interest in the rest of society. And they say, so one side says, tax me less, let me keep my wealth. The other side says, give me more, transfer more welfare, more goodies, more benefits. And you have two parties forming, one representing one group, the other one representing the other group, rich and poor. I think we should try, to the maximum extent that we can, align all the interests of Singaporeans and make sure that one party can represent you, whether you're the CEO or whether you're the taxi driver. The third possibility is that we split on policy grounds. You argue that this set of policies will be best for Singapore to grow, promoting MNCs. They argue that, no, I don't want MNCs, sending them all away and depending on Singaporeans and Singapore companies is a way to grow, and we can't reconcile, and we split and we argue over the policies and fight it out at the polls. I think that could happen, but it's not so likely because the PAP is a pragmatic party and we are ready to take in good ideas. But the most important reason why a two-party system is not workable is because we don't have enough talent in Singapore to form two A teams, to form two really first-class teams to govern Singapore really well. More than any other country, Singapore needs exceptionally able leadership to tackle challenges and to minimize the risks for our country. We are small, we are vulnerable. With a mediocre government, other countries may muddle through and have to muddle through, but Singapore will fail. The most effective way to get a two-party system, if you really want to do it, is to split the PAP in two, because the talent is there, it's gathered. We will have two persons, I choose one, you choose one. I choose one, you choose one. Okay, now we have two teams, now we play, toss the coins. We seriously considered making the PAP two parties, not that way, but in principle, but we didn't do it. Because we couldn't solve one problem. How can you make two teams, each one as good as the original one team which we had, which took really what would have been the best players from both teams? Or to put it in very hard and direct, tangible terms, where can you find two finance ministers and two defense ministers? I have one finance minister and one defense minister. If you have a spare one somewhere, please let me know. Why do I choose these two? Because these are two of the most difficult jobs in the cabinet to fill. In finance, you have to make judgments on taxes affecting all Singaporeans, on expenditures affecting all ministries. On the budget, you're talking about $50 billion of expenditure every year, as well as on our reserves, GIC, Temasek, MAS, and others, adding up to more than 100 billion US dollars. To find one of them is not easy. To find two of them, you must really yobepio. It's the same with defense. In a curiously opposite way, because finance is about money and is very difficult, and defense is very difficult because it is not about money. Because the bottom line is intangible. Security, risk, threats, judgment. What is worth spending on? What is worth investing on? Which is the right aeroplane to buy? How many ships do you need? Which colonels to make general? How to shape the SAF? Which threats are getting serious? When do I recommend to mobilize the SAF? When do I decide I must deploy and defend? Can you easily find anybody off the street to do that sort of job? Very, very difficult. So therefore, I think one team, get the best people together, fill each job with the best man. If we split it into two teams, then whichever one is in charge, the government is going to be weaker, and the chances of something going wrong will go up. Definitely, even if things don't go wrong, standards will go down. And that's why I and all my predecessors have gone out of our way to scour the land for talent to join the team. And every election we have 20-odd candidates become new MPs. And out of these, on average, I did a count over the last 5 or 6 elections, about 3 make it to become minister. But we have 14 ministries to fill. And then on top of that, you need some supervising ministers, some DPMs, some senior ministers, because you need some additional experience and oversight of the system. So just say 14 ministries to fill, and I can get 3 new ministers each term. You do the math. 14 divided by 3 means, on average, each minister has to serve at least 4 terms. The opposition parties pitch themselves as offering Singapore a fallback should the PAP fail. It sounds plausible, but if you think about it, what does it depend on? Most critically, it comes back to talent again. If the PAP can't assemble a second team, I don't think the opposition will find it easier to do that. You look at it from the micro view. Consider a capable person weighing his options. He wants to serve the nation, he's trying to decide how to do it, which way he should go. And he has 2 choices. First choice, join the opposition, oversee the PAP, but really spend his life, and can be quite a long time, waiting and watching, just in case the PAP screws up, then he'll be ready to take over. The other alternative is join the government, help it to make better decisions, implement good policies, and avoid making mistakes and screwing up. Now, which makes more sense for him and for Singapore? So, I think for all these reasons, I think the best thing for us to do is to concentrate our resources and form one really strong Singapore team. Some people will want to join the opposition. Yes, they'll want to propound alternative policies, or they'll want to be a check on the government. That's valid. By all means, join the opposition, especially if the government is wrong or incompetent. But so long as the government is competent and doing a good job for Singaporeans, I hope you will make common cause with it and help us to ensure that things stay right. But what we can do and must do to assure Singapore's future is to develop the strongest possible A team with depth and resilience. Competent ministers, people with expertise in different ministries, plus depth, younger ones learning the job, so that as the situation changes, as we have new needs, we can always find the right person for the right job. And if one person doesn't work out, I can do a replacement, I can call a timeout, change my team member, and the game goes on. Actually, that's how soccer is played. If you watch World Cup soccer, every country only has one team. No country fields two teams for the World Cup soccer. You have one national soccer team, you have reserve players, you have coaches, you can change players, and if need be, you can even change the coach. But you concentrate all your talent, make one team, and give it your best shot, whether it's Johannesburg or Rio de Janeiro. And I think that's what we should do. We are not so successful in soccer, but we are not doing badly in government. And I think that we should keep up our winning streak and stay in the championship league in the international contest of nations.
Sumpah itu memiliki makna spiritual yang amat dalam, yang menegaskan komitmen untuk bekerja keras mencapai kehendak kita bersama sebagai bangsa yang besar. Kini saatnya kita menyatukan hati dan tangan. Kini saatnya kita bersama-sama melanjutkan ujian sejarah berikutnya yang maha berat, yakni mencapai dan mewujudkan Indonesia yang berdaulat di bidang politik, berdikari di bidang ekonomi, dan berkepribadian dalam berkebudayaan. Saya yakin tugas sejarah yang maha berat ini akan bisa kita pikul bersama-sama dengan persatuan, dengan gotong royong, dan dengan kerja keras. Persatuan dan gotong royong ada syarat bagi kita untuk menjadi bangsa besar. Kita tidak akan pernah besar jika terjebak dalam keterbelahan dan keterpecahan. Dan kita tidak pernah betul-betul merdeka tanpa kerja keras. Pemerintahan yang saya pimpin akan bekerja untuk memastikan bahwa setiap rakyat di seluruh pelosok tanah air merasakan kehadiran pelayanan pemerintahan. Saya juga mengajak seluruh lembaga negara untuk bekerja dengan semangat yang sama dalam menjalankan tugas dan fungsinya masing-masing. Saya yakin negara ini akan semakin kuat dan berwibawa jika semua lembaga negara bekerja memanggul mandat yang telah diberikan oleh konstitusi kita. Kepada para nelayan, para buruh, para petani, para pedagang bakso, para pedagang asongan, sopir, akademisi, guru, TNI, Polri, pengusaha, dan kalangan profesional, saya menyerukan untuk bekerja keras, bahu-membahu, bergotong royong, karena inilah momen sejarah bagi kita semua untuk bergerak bersama, untuk bekerja dan bekerja. Hadirin yang mulia, kita juga ingin hadir di antara bangsa-bangsa dengan kehormatan, dengan martabat, dengan harga diri. Kita ingin menjadi bangsa yang bisa menyusun peradaban sendiri, bangsa besar yang kreatif, yang bisa ikut menyumbangkan keluhuran bagi peradaban global. Kita harus bekerja dengan sekeras-kerasnya untuk mengembalikan Indonesia sebagai negara maritim, samudra, laut, selat, dan teluk adalah masa depan peradaban kita. Kita telah terlalu lama memunggungi laut, memunggungi samudra, dan memunggungi Selat dan Teluk. Kini saatnya kita mengembalikan semuanya sehingga Jalsveva Jayamahe, di laut justru kita jaya. Sebagai semboyan nenek moyang kita di masa lalu bisa kembali lagi membahana. Saudara-saudaraku sebangsa dan setanah air, kerja besar membangun bangsa tidak mungkin dilakukan sendiri oleh Presiden dan Wakil Presiden ataupun jajaran pemerintahan yang saya pimpin, tetapi membutuhkan topangan kekuatan bersama, kekuatan kolektif yang merupakan kesatuan seluruh bangsa. 5 tahun ke depan menjadi momentum pertaruhan kita sebagai bangsa yang merdeka. Oleh sebab itu, bekerja adalah yang utama. Saya yakin dengan kerja keras dan gotong royong, kita akan mampu melindungi segenap bangsa Indonesia dan seluruh tumpah darah Indonesia, meningkatkan kesejahteraan umum, mencerdaskan kehidupan bangsa, dan ikut melaksanakan ketertiban dunia yang berdasarkan kemerdekaan, perdamaian abadi, dan keadilan sosial. Saudara-saudara sebangsa dan setanah air, atas nama rakyat dan pemerintah Indonesia, saya mengucapkan terima kasih dan penghargaan yang sebesar-besarnya kepada Yang Mulia Kepala Negara dan pemerintahan serta utusan khusus dari negara-negara sahabat. Saya ingin menegaskan di bawah pemerintahan saya, Indonesia sebagai negara terbesar ketiga dengan penduduk muslim terbesar di dunia, sebagai negara kepulauan dan sebagai negara terbesar di Asia Tenggara akan terus menjalankan politik luar negeri yang bebas aktif, yang diabdikan untuk kepentingan nasional dan ikut serta dalam menciptakan ketertiban dunia berdasarkan kemerdekaan, perdamaian abadi, dan keadilan sosial. Pada kesempatan yang bersejarah ini, perkenankan saya atas nama pribadi, atas nama Wakil Presiden Muhammad Yusuf Kalla, dan atas nama bangsa Indonesia menyampaikan terima kasih dan penghargaan setinggi-tingginya kepada Bapak Profesor Dr. Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, dan Bapak Profesor Dr. Budiono yang telah memimpin penyelenggaraan pemerintahan selama 5 tahun terakhir ini. Hadirin yang saya muliakan, mengakhiri pidato ini, saya mengajak saudara-saudara sebangsa dan setanah air untuk mengingat satu hal yang pernah disampaikan oleh Presiden pertama Republik Indonesia, Bung Karno, bahwa untuk membangun Indonesia menjadi negara besar, negara yang kuat, negara yang makmur, negara yang damai, kita harus memiliki jiwa cakrawarti samudra, jiwa pelaut yang berani mengarungi gelombang dan hempasan ombak yang menggulung. Sebagai nahkoda yang dipercaya oleh rakyat, saya mengajak semua warga bangsa untuk naik ke atas kapal Republik Indonesia dan berlayar bersama menuju Indonesia Raya. Kita akan kembangkan layar yang kuat. Kita akan hadapi semua badai dan gelombang samudra dengan kekuatan kita sendiri. Dan saya akan berdiri di bawah kehendak rakyat dan konstitusi. Semoga Tuhan Yang Maha Esa senantiasa merestui upaya luhur kita bersama. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Semoga Tuhan memberkati. Om Santi Santi Om. Namo Buddhaya.
Americans, this is America's day. This is Democracy's Day, a day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve. Through a crucible for the ages, America has been tested anew, and America has risen to the challenge. Today, we celebrate the triumph not of a candidate, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people, has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious, democracy is fragile, and at this hour, my friends, democracy has prevailed. So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than 2 centuries. As we look ahead in our uniquely American way, restless, bold, optimistic, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service. I've just taken the sacred oath each of those patriots have taken, the oath first sworn by George Washington. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we, the people, who seek a more perfect union. This is a great nation. We are good people. And over the centuries, through storm and strife, in peace and in war, we've come so far. But we still have far to go. We'll press forward with speed and urgency, for we have much to do in this winter of peril and significant possibilities. Much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's history have been more challenged or found a time more challenging or difficult than the time we're in now. Once-in-a-century virus that silently stalks the country has taken as many lives in 1 year as America lost in all of World War II. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, some 400 years in the making, moves us. The dream of justice for all will be deferred no longer. A cry for survival comes from the planet itself. A cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. To overcome these challenges, to restore the soul and secure the future of America, requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this. Bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause. Uniting to fight the foes we face: anger, resentment and hatred, extremism, lawlessness, violence, disease, joblessness, and hopelessness. With unity, we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs. We can put people to work in good jobs. We can teach our children in safe schools. We can overcome the deadly virus. We can reward work and rebuild the middle class and make health care secure for all. We can deliver racial justice, and we can make America one force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. But I also know they are not new. Our history has been a constant struggle between the American ideal that we're all are created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. In each of these moments, enough of us have come together to carry all of us forward. And we can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. No nation, only a state of chaos. This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge. And unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as the United States of America. If we do that, I guarantee you we will not fail. We have never, ever, ever, ever failed in America when we've acted together. And so today, at this time, in this place, let's start afresh, all of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again, hear one another, see one another, show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured. My fellow Americans, we have to be different than this. America has to be better than this. And I believe America is so much better than this. Just look around. Here we stand in the shadow of the Capitol Dome, as was mentioned earlier, completed amid the Civil War, when the Union itself was literally hanging in the balance. Yet we endured. We prevailed. Here we stand, looking out on the great mall where Dr. King spoke of his dream. Here we stand where 108 years ago, at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change. Here we stand across the Potomac from Arlington Cemetery, where heroes who gave the last full measure of devotion rest in eternal peace. And here we stand, just days after a riotous mob thought they could use violence to silence the will of the people, to stop the work of our democracy, to drive us from this sacred ground. It did not happen. It will never happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not ever. To all those who supported our campaign, I'm humbled by the faith you've placed in us. To all those who did not support us, let me say this. Hear me out as we move forward. Take a measure of me and my heart. And if you still disagree, so be it. That's democracy. That's America. The right to dissent peaceably within the guardrails of our republic is perhaps this nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion. And I pledge this to you. I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans. And I promise you, I will fight as hard for those who did not support me as for those who did. Many centuries ago, St. Augustine, a saint of my church, wrote that a people was a multitude defined by the common objects of their love. Defined by the common objects of their love. What are the common objects we as Americans love that define us as Americans? I think we know. Opportunity, security, liberty, dignity, respect, honor, and yes, the truth. Recent weeks and months have taught us a painful lesson. There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Americans, and especially as leaders. Leaders who have pledged to honor our Constitution and protect our nation, to defend the truth and defeat the lies. Look, I understand that many of my fellow Americans view the future with fear and trepidation. I understand they worry about their jobs. I understand, like my dad, they lay in bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, can I keep my health care? Can I pay my mortgage? Thinking about their families, about what comes next. I promise you, I get it. But the answer is not to turn inward, to retreat into competing factions, distrusting those who don't look like you, or worship the way you do, or don't get their news from the same sources you do. We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this if we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts, if we show a little tolerance and humility, and if we're willing to stand in the other person's shoes, as my mom would say, just for a moment, stand in their shoes. Because here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days, when you need a hand. There are other days when we're called to lend a hand. That's how it has to be. That's what we do for one another. And if we are this way, our country will be stronger, more prosperous, more ready for the future. And we can still disagree. My fellow Americans, in the work ahead of us, we're going to need each other. We need all our strength to persevere through this dark winter. We're entering what may be the toughest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face this pandemic as one nation. One nation. And I promise you this, as the Bible says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. We will get through this together. Together. Look, folks, all my colleagues I serve with in the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today. So here's my message to those beyond our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again, not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges. And we'll lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. We'll be a strong and trusted partner for peace, progress, and security. Look, you all know we've been through so much in this nation. And my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all of those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, and co-workers. We'll honor them by becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be. So I ask you, let's say a silent prayer for those who've lost their lives and those left behind, and for our country. Amen.